Hey there folks, this is Pogo here. I thought I'd make a video showing you guys some of my workflow when it comes to remixing a film.
You are so beautiful.
What you do?
I have here a copy of My Fair Lady. This has been remastered using the original 65mm film negative.
I shall never let.
And what we're going to do with My Fair Lady is we're going to find music, sounds and voices that we can turn into an original track that hopefully captures the spirit and the atmosphere and the story of this film.
You can twist the heart.
Let them buy their wedding bands. I shall never.
One uncle pet better. I hope she solves so I can go. Your wish, uncle pet better. You're going, Mrs. Her.
You might be looking around my studio and thinking, what on earth are all of these pads all over the walls? Why do you have insulation bats in the corners of your room? This is my music studio. This is where I make my mixes, and I need it to sound really good. I need to know exactly what my music sounds like while I'm mastering it. Sound can be quite boomy in different rooms. You'll get peaks where there's too much bass, and then you'll get valleys where there's not enough bass. So the idea is to place big mass, really thick foam mass, high up in the corners throughout your studio, and that helps to control bass response. Now, because My Fair Lady is on disc, I'm going to need myself a Blu-ray reader, which is exactly what I've got here. The real reason I chose this film actually is because my parents recommended I watch it. It's nowhere near my favorite musical, but I think there are some wonderful voices in here, especially when Rex goes very high, and Audrey Hepburn sounds really nice as well. The reason I like to work with Blu-rays or DVDs is because it's the highest quality of the film I can get as a consumer. When I'm going to pour this many hours into a project, I want the best quality I can get. So here's the meat and potatoes of what we're doing in this video. We're going to be looking for chord samples in My Fair Lady like this one. And now, if we play these on different keys, we can get them to play together. And if we drop in a basic bass line, using a couple of bass samples, we can reinforce the root notes of those chords. Really nice. And then we're going to get into some basic rhythm construction using some kicks and hi-hats. But let's see what else we can find in the film. I'm going to draw these out on a piano roll, and I'm just going to see if I can create some kind of chord structure or melody with this. I'm actually going to add 2 more samples. I'm going to add a sample of some Rhodes. And I'm going to add a sample of a chord that I took from the PlayStation game Fluid. Now, to help reinforce those chords and to help better translate what it is the chords are doing and what I'm hearing in my head, I'm going to strengthen the root note of these chords by giving things a bass line. So I'm going to head into the piano roll here, and using my trusty 20-dot wave, I'm going to start drawing out a bass melody that kind of works with this chord structure. It's very bassy, but it doesn't have any overtones. On smaller speakers, you can't hear what it's doing. It is quite literally the lowest of the frequency range you can get. It's very subby, as we might call it. So on top of that, I'm going to use the same melody that I've just composed, but I'm going to add this wav. I'm going to keep it really simple. I think less is more. You don't want to go throwing lots and lots into whatever it is you're creating, because I think it loses identity and it's much harder for the listener to hone in on what you're feeling as the creator. It's like the more colors you mix into a paint, the more brown it gets, you know. You want less is more, and you want all your components to be really nicely separated. Clarity, simplicity is what we want. What I want to do now is start creating a vocal sequence that can sit nicely over the top of these chords. So I'm going to look through the vocals in My Fair Lady, that is the voices, and I'm going to try and find voices that sound nice, that are more from the chest than from the nose, that have a breathy quality to them, and that have some notes in there. I'm not a big fan of auto-tuning or using Melodyne.
I'll bet you all the expenses of the... I'll bet you all the expenses of the...
I don't really want to change how the voices sound. I want the character to come through all the way. So I'm looking for notes in spoken dialogue. You might be surprised, actually, that every so often, perhaps by chance or by some fate of the universe, characters happen to hit a note with a certain syllable of what they're saying. And that's what I'm going to look for in My Fair Lady.
I'm an ordinary man who desires nothing more.
Rex Harrison has this thing where he puts his voice really high and airy, and it's really nice. He's not singing, and that's what I love about this.
Let them buy their wedding bands for those anxious little hands.
It's difficult sometimes because you're trying to isolate the voice from the music in the film, and sometimes, well, a lot of the time that's impossible without having to get into your spectral graphs and start painting out notes from the orchestra. Very often they will mix a little bit of the orchestra, the background score, into the center channel of the surround mix, and that poses a few problems. So you have to go in and you have to paint those frequencies of the music out from the voice that you're trying to sample. You can also use Isotope RX, which has some very useful machine learning algorithms that can actually detect music separately from voice automatically and get rid of the music. This is fairly recent tech. I don't know how the hell it does it, but very often for me, it does a very good job.
I shall never let...
Ooh, I really like the way he says this. This sounds really, really nice.
I shall never let...
I shall never... That's nice. I really like that.
I shall never...
I've actually had to lower the key that this sample is played on because he sings it one key too high for the chords that I've put down.
Who desires...
Desire.
I shall never...
I like that I shall never sample so much that I'm actually going to have it at the start of each section, but I'm going to have 4 different sections that have different samples after the I shall never thing. So it's like the I shall never is the one driving force. It's the one silver lining throughout the whole thing, but then you've got samples changing around that.
I shall never...
The feeling I want from you.
I shall never let them buy their wedding.
Now I'm thinking here, before we get to the chorus, at the end of our first verse, I'm going to drop the kick drum and I'm going to drop the bass so that we kind of just float. It's kind of like, you know, you're coming off the peak of a roller coaster, but the whole thing detaches and the whole thing suddenly grows wings, kind of like in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. The car just suddenly has wings and you feel that sort of floating feeling, and then we hit the ground again as we get into the chorus.
I shall never let them buy their wedding. I shall never
No, nothing wrong with you. I won your bet for you, haven't I? That's enough for you. I don't matter, I suppose.
You won my...
He's not singing that. He's just saying that because that's how he expresses himself. He goes really high and really breathy. And I really like this. I'm going to see if I can use this in the chorus.
Good girl, slippers, don't understand. Good girl.
I'm also going to put down some ride cymbals just to add some excitement and some presence to the chorus section that we have going here. Because I'm trying to create excitement with ride cymbals, I think it really does add to have some of the notes on the left, some of the notes on the right. It just gives your mix a really nice stereo feeling.
Good girl.
Let them buy their wedding.
Good girl.
What I'm doing here is I'm creating an automation curve that dips the volume of the ride cymbals each time there's a kick drum. So it kind of just, it helps to give the mixer a certain heartbeat, a kind of a rhythm. Now I'm thinking after the chorus, I'd like to have a kind of instrumental bit, maybe just a little of a bridge to kind of let us back down from the sky. And I'm really liking the way that this vocal is sounding.
Never budge.
In fact, I might use these vocals on repeat as a kind of melodic pulsing from left to right, and then I might just let that bleed straight through into our next verse.
I shall never every day desire.
I do.
I shall never every day.
Making lots of.
I'm thinking for the outro, I found this vocal of Rex Harrison's character,
Like breathing out and breathing in.
and I've had to paint out quite a lot of notes from the orchestra playing on top of his voice. I also used, like I was saying, Isotope RX, which has a machine learning algorithm capable of automatically detecting music separately from vocal content, and you can adjust the volume of each independently. It's very good.
Breathing out, breathing in. Breathing out, breathing in.
Now, before I start working on the mastering of this track, which I don't think is going to take too much work, I like to give every track, every sample, and every clip a corresponding color and three-letter label. It all starts to get a bit messy very quickly, and you want to be able to look through your project file and at first glance identify what everything is. For the vocal track, what I'm doing here is I'm using a wonderful plugin from Yuhi. This is called Presswork. This is a very, very nice vintage style compressor slash saturator. But I'm going to use the easy compressor in this to control the levels of all of the vocals throughout my track so that it makes the soft parts almost as loud as the loud parts. And there's also just a little notch here in the vocal track, sort of in the mid-highs, which I'm finding a bit harsh. So I'm just going to tame those. I'm using FabFilter Pro Q2. And then finally, very sparingly, I'm going to apply some reverb to my vocals. You got to remember, reverb pushes the sound it's processing away from the listener.
Making lots of, making lots of, making lots of.
The more reverb, the further away your brain perceives it to be. So I've got my mix here set to 9.2%. This is the wonderful Valhalla vintage verb. I've got a mixer track here through which I'm feeding all of my chord samples, which we started working on. With almost every chord sample I record, the mid bass is always too strong. So I clean that up, and I've had to do that quite a bit here, again using FabFilter Pro Q2. Finally, on my master channel, I've applied the EQ curve created by playing sine wave sweeps through my speakers from the listening position using my measurement microphone, the Behringer ECM 8000. So what this does is it flattens out the sound that I'm hearing from my listening position so that when I'm mastering, I'm hearing what I'm supposed to be hearing. Underneath that, I have sitting a copy of Invisible Limiter. It takes care of your peaks, it boosts your volume without any distortion, and it's really clean. Under that, I'm using satin to give the mix a little bit of tape saturation, makes things sound a bit warmer, a bit more cohesive, I suppose. And then under that, once again, press work just to boost the volume levels a bit and a little bit of extra saturation.
I shall never,
You can twist the heart.
I shall never,
Every day.
Mighty lots of.
Now that I've finished up my track, I'm going to start working on the video edit. And what I'm doing is I'm going back to the movie and I'm finding the video clips of the sounds that I've used in the track, and then I'm synchronizing those video clips so that as you hear the voice in the song, you see the character in the film saying it. When I'm making videos for my remixes, I'll very often use a video clip for a sound or a voice that isn't the original video clip associated with that voice. So I have here a shot of Rex Harrison in the film saying the word day, which is the vocal sample I've used in the chorus of the track. But I don't like the shot so much. He's in a really weird spot. It's a very wide shot. The lighting isn't very nice. I think it's quite dark. It's quite diffused. I've found this shot, which I much prefer, and his mouth is moving very similarly. So I'm thinking I'm going to use this shot instead, even though technically it's not the shot of that sound, of that voice. When I'm working on these videos, I find it very helpful to treat it in stages. So my first stage is to simply synchronize all the video clips of the sounds I've used in my track to those sounds. And so now it becomes a process of telling a story a little bit, giving the viewer some energy, encouraging them to dance, to move, trying to capture the energy of the track visually instead of just echoing what we're hearing.
I shall never desire, I shall never,
Mighty lots of.
I shall never let them fight their wedding. I shall never love in absolute.
And there you go, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've found this video educational. I hope it's been entertaining. I hope it's inspired you to make your own music, to remix films yourself. It's a lot of fun because you really get to explore something you love in a whole different way. And because you're remixing something, it's very often that what you're working with becomes your inspiration. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you're happy and in good health. I'll see you in the near future.